Hi guys, welcome to the video. This is my movie review for sort of the summer season. I want to start off by saying that I don't really consider myself a film or movie buff. I love watching movies, but I am by no means a connoisseur and I've never taken a film class, so please just assume I have no idea what I'm talking about in this video. Also, I know summer isn't over, but this video is going to take a lot of work, and who knows, maybe it is the end of summer by the time I finish editing this. I watched a couple of movies that I've never seen before, and I'm only going to review movies I've never seen, so this list isn't super long. Oh well. In order of when I watched them, here we go. The first movie I watched in June was The Hunt for the Wilder People, directed by Taika Waititi. I knew I would enjoy it, and my assumptions were correct. If you liked Thor Ragnarok and the movie Up, I think this is a movie you'll want to see. The humor is pretty spot on, and even though I don't get all of the references and the jokes, I still enjoyed the majority. First off, the scenery of the bush is so beautiful and shot in a way that makes you feel like you're there, and I'm a sucker for a huge forest. The Hunt for Wilder People tries its best to figure out the definition of family, whether that be something you end up with or something you find on your own, and while it doesn't give you the answer, I think it leaves you enough clues to figure it out for yourself. The dynamic of the main characters here felt realistic as a family, and I felt my feelings and experiences shine through in a lot of their interactions. Also, Ricky, the main character, is the best explanation for an actual kid in a movie I've ever seen. He acts like a kid, someone who thinks they understand the world, knows everything, but doesn't, and they're also extremely vulnerable and need support and guidance. I gave this a 7 out of 10. I wouldn't mind watching it again, and I really enjoyed it, but it didn't go above and beyond. That said, I definitely recommend giving it a watch. The second movie was Spree, and I guess you could call it a horror or a thriller movie about a guy who wants to be internet famous. I feel like Kurt is the epitome of a YouTuber. In the beginning, I could totally relate to him trying to make relevant content and being unsure of who he was. Hello, my 26 subscribers. However, I would not replicate what he does in order to gain followers, I promise. He is a very accurate, awkward white guy. I feel like I've met guys like him before, ones where you just get the feeling you shouldn't be talking to them. While the plot is pretty straightforward, a guy who works for a replacement Uber decides to kill people for fame, I think the way it's done and the way it's shot make it really interesting. You only ever see as if you're watching on a screen. You never see a POV shot or a shot without some sort of border reminding you this is footage that has been made for you to watch. You can only see from cameras that Kurt put up in the car or what he's filming while using his phone, so we can never really get a full picture, which I think is super cool. Also, as a side note, none of his passengers ever buckle their seatbelts, and I found that so strange. The ending of this film, without too many spoilers, falls exactly into what influencers and social media do. It was exactly how human beings behave online, and I think that's why I liked it so much. 7 out of 10, definitely recommend it. The third movie, keeping to the theme of killing in social media, is #Alive, a Korean zombie film that takes place in one apartment building. My first thought was that the infected people turn into zombies in a weird way, and it took me out of the movie for a bit, but that's personal taste, I suppose. This is the first zombie movie that I felt utilized tech in a realistic way, and the characters did things with their phones and even a drone that I felt real-life people would do as well. Although I'm not a tech person, what I did focus on was the acting, and I really enjoyed it. The main character does a good job of showing how lonely and wild it is to be stuck alone in a building, and shows how precious and important the bond with others is during a traumatic situation like that. Also, side note, I really love the music in this film so much that I wrote that as a talking point, but I don't know anything about movie scores, so I'll just let you know I think it's good. To go back to relationships with others, I think the scene where the two leads are making ramen in their apartments, trying to make it seem like they're together, even though they're far apart, is my favorite scene, and definitely felt like something I could relate to. Also, the twist in this movie got me so good. I totally believed everything, but I won't spoil it. This movie was an 8 out of 10. I loved Alive. The next movie is Yes Man from 2008. This is my first Jim Carrey movie I've seen, aside from The Grinch, which I watch every Christmas. The plot is basically that a divorced man goes to a seminar and decides to devote his life to this mantra of saying yes to everything. To be honest, I don't really like the main character and can't find a way to relate to him, which made watching this less enjoyable. There isn't much making him likable, even after he starts to say yes to everything. There is no turning point where I feel like he's become a better person having gone through all this. He just becomes the guy who got the girl and gets to be happy, even though he didn't learn to be a better man. Also, this movie gives me bad secondhand embarrassment, so it was hard to sit through parts that were supposed to be comedic. It's the same reason I can't watch The Office. Most of the jokes just don't hit. Maybe that's because it came out 13 years ago, but I didn't find myself laughing a whole lot. The biggest likable quality in this movie was Zooey Deschanel. I love her in New Girl and was happy to see her, although I don't like her quirky romantic interest character. I do have one question. How did her moped go so fast? I thought they couldn't top like 30 miles per hour. Overall, I wouldn't recommend this movie unless you love Jim Carrey or you have watched basically all other movies. 5 out of 10. Next up was The Croods. I'm sure most people have seen or at least heard of this movie, so I won't give you a plot breakdown, but I was not expecting to enjoy a movie about cavemen as much as I did. It's your basic plot of dad doesn't understand the child, but I think the setting makes the trope seem a bit more fresh, although not that fresh. The characters are pretty cute, but most of them are very hollow and don't get any development. Also, the animation for them is pretty weird in the beginning. Maybe my eyes just got used to it, but I didn't notice it as much toward the end of the movie. Also, how does Eep's dress stay up? The physics on that dress are amazing. I have to have one. I think the environments they travel through are really pretty, and overall it's a good story, just seems like one I've seen so many times before. Good to watch on a Sunday afternoon though. 6 out of 10. Next up, certainly not a family-friendly movie, Jennifer's Body. I'm sure most of you know what this movie is about too, so first off, I'll just say that I love Megan Fox. She is very cool and smart and does a wonderful acting job in this movie. The first thing I noticed in this movie, though, is that the main character, Needy, is supposed to be nerdy and not popular, but I don't really feel that at all. It isn't super believable for me, but it didn't bother me too much in the grand scheme of the movie. Also, I assumed Jennifer was going to start out likable, but I think the movie subverts that idea in that she isn't super likable ever, but you still feel yourself feeling empathy for her in her situation. Which brings me to, why didn't Needy help her get away from the creepy band guys? She just sat there and let her be taken. Not best friend behavior, if you ask me. All the guys in this movie are scummy in my opinion, except for Colin, who is cute and nice and didn't deserve that. This movie isn't scary, but it's definitely a thrilling and super compelling story that I've never seen before. It has an interesting ending that I won't spoil, but I will say that it subverted my expectations, as I feel this whole movie did. I really enjoyed this movie, and I definitely recommend it, if you're old enough. I'm pretty sure this is rated R. 8 out of 10 for sure. Then, of course, to follow that up, I watched Berserk. I know it's a manga as well, but I've never read it, so I was going in blind. To be honest, I couldn't really tell you a substantial plot point, as the whole movie felt super rushed. I understand it is part of a series of movies, but I feel like I have no idea what's happening. That being said, I still enjoyed it a lot. It's in a 3D animation style similar to an anime I really like called Dorohedoro, so while it looks a bit weird, I'm already used to the style, so I didn't mind. The main character, Guts, is pretty basic, and really only gets character development when he, spoilers, kills a child for Griffith, so I didn't feel super connected to the story. And as before, with it being so fast, no characterization, doesn't help the movie's case. Also, the female character, whose name I unfortunately do not know, gets no characterization and nothing to do, even though they want us to believe she is part of the big three for this movie. Just made me sad to not know anything about her. Griffith is hot, and we know the most about him, and that's all I really have for him. There's a lot of gore, but also a really cute scene with leaves, so it balances out. Also, the ending made me emotional. Not enough to cry, but I felt for the characters despite not really knowing them, and I think that's a credit to this movie. Also, the music is really wonderful. 7 out of 10. I guess I should watch the sequels to figure it out. Continuing the animation train, I watched Kite, a 1998 movie, although it's only 48 minutes, so I'm not sure I would call it a movie. The animation is old, obviously, but I really loved it. The old animation is so nice looking to me. The plot is pretty simple yet very interesting. Two college students, or college-aged kids, are assassins for a cop, and things ensue. I don't want to spoil it because it's so short and easy to spoil, so trust me when I say the plot is really good. Sawa and Obari are cool protagonists, and while sometimes seem a bit bland, I'm going to blame that on how short it is. The music flows with it really well, being very jazz-like, and the timing for the music is really spot on with the animation. It's only 48 minutes, as I said before, which is almost the same as a long TV episode, so I really recommend it. Also, side note, I think TikTok would go ham over a Kai who is awful, but has the look of TikTok hot guys, if you know what I mean. This is rated TVMA, but it's got a lot more nudity and gore than expected for the rating, so just be aware of that. Overall, I absolutely enjoyed this movie, and it might be my favorite movie this year. 9 out of 10. Please go watch this right now. Lastly, I went for a classic that I saw an edit of on TikTok that made me want to see what it was up, and that movie is Hook. First off, the sets are really interesting and made it feel as if I'm watching a stage play, which actually made this more enjoyable to me because I have a past with theater. The plot was kind of bland in my opinion, so I didn't really enjoy that aspect, which is basically the whole point of the movie, but I digress. However, the costumes and set made up for it a bit. The Lost Boys are adorable and add a lot to the movie, however, I do not enjoy hearing children sing. Sorry Peter Pan's kid, but please don't do that again. There was a weird romance with Tinkerbell as well? What was that about? It was really unnecessary. I really don't have many thoughts about this movie. It isn't bad, but it's not very enjoyable, and I found myself bored through most of it. The movie has been lost to time, it seems, and while I'm sure nostalgia could make someone really like this movie, that isn't a factor for me, so I'm going to have to give it a 5 out of 10. Overall, the movies for the summer weren't that bad. Some weren't great, but not having any that I hated, I count as a win. Let me know if I should make more of these videos by liking and commenting, and also comment any movie recommendations you want me to see. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a good day, good week, good year, good life. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.